Hello. So, today, the last episode of Season 1 of Land of the Lost and the first episode of Season 2 of Land of the Lost, which drew a line that I didn't expect just from lack of memory, but did make it clear that most of the nifty, fantastical stuff that I remember, that I really remember and go back to the show for, happened in season two. Um, and not that, I mean, season one is more, they deal with the weather, they deal with the dinosaurs, they deal with the slee stacks, and I guess there's Sir Balin, but he's not particularly interesting. Um, but kind of more, and the crystals, the slee stacks crystals are a little, they're something beyond. But well, I'll get to the first episode of season two, and but later episodes of season two is my very favorite of the monstrous things that appears. But first, last episode of season one, which is called Power Play, which again gets to those crystals. So as I've been saying, it's a little convenient how much electricity and power they still have in their radio, their car, stuff like that. And I don't know if it was always planned like this, or if the writers eventually realized it, or maybe it was in the '70s version, and this is just their version of that. But the batteries come home to roost in the episode Power Play, and checking Canyon. I'll figure out what that means, hopefully. And they are running out of batteries. The episode opens, they're in the dark. They have flashlights, but the flashlights are on their last light. The batteries are running out, and they get attacked, kind of, by a stegosaurus, and they say, "Flash the lights in its eyes," but the flashlights aren't working very well. And so, Tom mentions that these were from the last pack of batteries. So they had extra packs of batteries on their trip. I guess a road trip, it does make sense. If I think back to the road trips of my childhood, we probably had extra packs of batteries before it was just a matter of bringing a cord to plug in your phone, and your phone was everything. Camera, video games, everything. Packing extra packages of batteries does make sense. Ultimately, Tom distracts the Stegosaurus and Kevin runs home, and then Tom eventually joins up as well. But they're getting worried about their dying electronics. Annie is even journaling. I don't know if she has written in a journal heretofore, but she is journaling, and you get a narration over the activity for a while. Annie's voice saying things like, Kevin was looking forward to, when we get back home, all his footage of the dinosaurs would get him some Hollywood thing. It's a very interesting kind of artsy thing in the episode. Tasha is sick. That is a detail. And so, and Tom has but so they're all kind of upset and worried, probably scared about what happens when they run out of battery power. And so Tom has the idea that Shung's crystal glowed, and which suggests some kind of power. And they also probably remember that giant crystal that Kevin, in Kevin versus the Volcano, that Kevin found, and that it gave headaches, and it kind of controlled the volcano. So he has the idea that Shung's crystals might be powerful. So he sets out to find Shung to steal the crystal dagger, I think. Not sure how he planned to do it. He didn't let the kids come, Krista's not in the episode at all. I don't think she's in either of these episodes. But he goes out on his own to find Shung and try to get the crystal, I guess. And he does knock the crystal out of Shung's hand when Scarface attacks. So Shung meets him. Shung decided to do his own hunting today. Shung meets Tom. They get into a bit of a scuffle, and then Scarface shows up, and both of them are afraid of Scarface. So, but Tom gets away first because Shang is equally afraid, but also a little more confident in his own, which I guess makes him a little less afraid. But he's a big deal warrior type person. But in any case, Tom knocks the crystal dagger out of Shang's hand, and then Scarface steps on it. And that, I think, is the last that we hear from that dagger in the episode. And it also occurred to me at this point, I wrote down, Annie had Shang's crystal for a while, and it didn't, they got scared of it, and they made it go away. That does, I'm not blaming it, it's probably a deliberate thing, or not an unintentional thing, but they could have, I guess they were scared of it, which is why they didn't try it, but it occurred to me that they could have tried it at that point rather than just being afraid of it. Tom goes and hides in a cave, and meanwhile, back at the treehouse, Stink has invited the kids, or visits the kids, and they're playing card games, and in a fun, silly, out-of-nowhere gag, I guess they're trying to scam Stink because they know the rules of games and he doesn't. So they said, invite him to play a card game called Fish. And he happens to be carrying a sack full of fish that he just caught, and he dumps them on the table, and he says he wins. Doesn't know what they were trying to do, doesn't know what the game was probably, but it's just a cute, fun thing. And this is just so they have something to do, I think, to fill time while Tom is in the cave with Shang, who Shang eventually joins him in the cave and tries to attack, but then gets a headache, perhaps because he doesn't have his dagger, and he also eventually goes blind in that cave. Probably just a temporary thing, maybe connected to the dagger. Maybe if he doesn't have the dagger, he deteriorates. And Tom tries to reason with him, and meanwhile, the kids start to get worried, and so Kevin and Stink go out searching for Tom, and Annie stays and babysits Tasha. They probably had Tasha be sick in the episode so that Annie would have a reason to stay behind, didn't want her, I don't know. She tends to be left out of the adventures a lot, deliberately anyway, because she sometimes ends up there on her own. Tom does consider when Shang, headache, blind, defeated in many ways, he just kind of slumps off to sleep, and Tom considers, I think, bashing his head with a rock. He picks up a giant rock, it looks like he's going to attack, then he doesn't, which comes back later when he notices a hole and in the other end of the cave, and Scarface is outside of the cave roaring at it, and I do remember this just image of Scarface roaring at the outside of the cave for extended periods, and I'm thinking, that looks cool, that looks real. It looks less so to me now, but as a kid, it's one of those parts of the show where it felt almost like Jurassic Park, but not. But Tom notices the exit to the cave, and wouldn't you know it, around this exit from the cave are a bunch of crystals, similar to Shang's, and he starts to climb out, and Shang eventually starts trying to claw out after him, but too late, he's already out, and he sees Shang's arm coming out of the thing, grabbing around for him, and Kevin and Stink arrive, and they try to seal Shang into the cave, which Shang could always get out the other side once Scarface goes away. But Tom says, no, we can't do that, then we're no better than he is. Nice kind of lesson, family sitcom type of lesson. And then also, of course, So last scene, Tom puts some crystals into a flashlight. They don't seem to fill up the same amount of space that batteries would, and therefore touch the metal things inside the flashlight that would make the flashlight work, but the flashlight ultimately does work. They work, nobody else is around to see this thing, and then all the kids come through running, playing tag, another Brady Bunch type of thing that would happen. And at the end I wrote, the crystals will be no use when the bulbs run out. So in the case of the flashlights, the light bulbs will also eventually go bad. But that's the end of Season 1. Season 2 starts with an episode called The Sorceress. The previous episode, if I didn't say it, was Power Play. The Sorceress of the title is Keela. and she appears early, but not earliest. Um, Annie and Tasha are out doing I forget what, uh, and a giant dinosaur-like creature, but with one eye and um, mammalian features, uh, in addition to uh, dinosaur lizard features, um, reptilian features, bird-like features. Uh, this is a different wizard called Magus, and he appears and he threatens Tasha. I don't know why he goes after them. I think he thinks that they already have a beat on the sorceress. Um, then the sorceress Keela appears and blasts balls of blue light at him, and he goes away. And again, once again, he's Magus. She is Keela, and he doesn't freeze Annie and Tasha. I don't think I mentioned that they got frozen, but they start to run away from the weird magical madness that's going on, which, of course, they should. And she freezes them in place so that she can introduce herself, and that they will bring her to wherever they are. I don't know if she's. I guess they're both new to the place. Her story is she says that she was a sorceress in the queen's court, but then the queen died, and her brother took over, and didn't like Keela, or she didn't like the way that he was running things. They didn't get along, and he banished her to the Land of the Lost, which suggests that this king, maybe they were all magic, but has the power to bring people in and out of that world, which is a power that she does not have. And Magus was brought in to replace. He was one of the sorcerers brought in, but he mistreated the village people or whatever, and he was also banished, but not before. I wasn't quite sure of the timeline. It would seem that before either of them were banished, she turned him, Magus. Keela turned Magus into the monster, and then they were both banished in those forms. The monster doesn't have any power. She took his powers away, but he was slowly getting his power back by the time of the action of this episode. It's complicated, but there's a lot of magical powers involved, and this is where I will note that Magus is played by Ed Gale, who is the actor inside of the Tasha costume. He's not the voice of Tasha. The voice of Tasha is Danny Mann, and that actually also is an interesting for this episode, because Tasha is magically granted a human voice to communicate, because Annie is witnessed to have been trying to treat Tasha like a girlfriend and gossip with her and put on makeup, and once again she's got way too much makeup in my opinion, for it having been a road trip. And and Annie herself never wears makeup. I guess she's got all of her mom's makeup, and she wants to maybe perhaps commune with her mom in this way. But on a previous episode, when Tasha got into the makeup, Annie got upset. Anyway, Tasha is granted a voice, and nobody else is. Oh, I wrote down Danny Mann's voice there. Nobody else is credited, to my knowledge, as being that human voice of Tasha, and it's only a little bit, like pitch-wise, it's only a little bit different than the dinosaur voice. So I think that's also Danny Mann. So Danny Mann and Ed Gale get to step outside of Tasha in a way in this episode, which is neat. But eventually we see Ed Gale's body when when Keela turns him back into a wizard. Whereas we never see Danny Mann. I don't know if he ever does show up. I think he might show up. Anyway, Keela grants Tasha the power because she knows what it's like to be the only girl in a family, and wish that there was someone to talk girl stuff with. But when Tasha achieves human voice, her being a chatterbox is one thing, but she tells a story of flirting with dinosaurs and like something that might have happened at a school dance. She doesn't say school dance, but it's the sort of thing. And it's like, did she also get the memories that a girlfriend would gossip about also in addition to the voice? Because they hatched her from the egg. She has not, they tried to put her in the wild with other dinosaurs. It didn't take. And so she can't possibly have that memory. To say nothing of her age and flirting with and mating with other dinosaurs, whatever. So that's a weird thing, but I guess they had to give her something to talk about so she could be annoying. And so, okay, I went over the backstory of the wizards. Eventually, what comes to pass is that Magus tries to then use the porters to get to Keela because she is staying with them, as a break from, I guess she's been sleeping outside in the jungle. She can probably magic herself a bed, or even a shelter, perhaps, but she's staying with the porters, and so Magus finds Annie and Tasha just walking along and freezes them, or she freezes Annie so that Tasha can run off and get Keela, but Keela just shows up, apparates, so to speak, and they start to battle. Keela releases Magus from his monstrous form, and then Magus releases Annie, and Tasha sings the song She's a Witch to distract Magus because he's magically beating up on Keela, just blasting her with red balls of light, or balls of red light, however you want to say it, and Keela subdues him while Tasha is singing She's a Witch to be annoying. He blasts Tasha, breaking the spell that gives her the power of speech, but that's the distraction. He gets distracted, he goes after Tasha, and Keela is able to subdue him, and they go off into their world. So that's that episode. Tasha can't talk anymore. And yeah, Keela and Magus go off. I don't recall exactly if they come back. There is an episode title further down the line that suggests they do. Where is it? Yeah, Keela is mentioned again. So, but I am not there yet. The next two episodes that I will talk about are Dream Maker, which is one that I thought, I at different times thought it was the last episode of Season 1 and the last episode of Season 2, but it's the second episode of Season 2, and then Oppa. Oppa is Stink's grandfather. And so those are the episodes that are coming up. And, like I said, stuff like the one-eyed mammalian dragon dinosaur are the things that I remember most vividly from watching this as a kid. So apparently a lot of that, most of it, is in Season 2, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to relating it to the computer. As Krista would say, peace and love.